afternoon. It is me, Dr. G. Today, this whole thing that we're doing here is, and I was just talking to Kent, and that's going to be on Kent Jones. I didn't even realize this, but he lives 20 minutes from me. I just realized that a few minutes ago. But I'm doing all these things because when I was diagnosed, and I was just talking to Kent about this, really didn't have any hope, really didn't have any direction, didn't have any idea of functional medicine, or didn't have any idea of Wahls or anything really. It was just kind of like, all right, here's the drugs and do your best. And nothing against the neurologists. They seem to be great. A lot of them are friends of mine and all, but there's really not much that can be done. So, I really like to talk to people like Kent that are really inspirations to me, because I see people living it, and living it to the full degree that MS offers, unfortunately. I tend to think that if I would have known a little what I know now a few years when I was first diagnosed, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now. Maybe Kent feels the same way, I don't know. But we're going to bring him on and just talk. And I just invite everybody to chime in there and answer any questions, or just have a conversation. The other thing I'll plug is Wahls research, because when I was at the seminar, I heard her talk to a speakers group, because I had the fortunate opportunity to speak there, and she presented what her new research ideas were, and how, let's see how I can say it politically correct. I don't want to be politically correct anymore. The Multiple Sclerosis Society, the big organization, NIH, they're not going to fund these pilot studies without preliminary research. And so this is all what Dr. Wahls is doing. And she's not necessarily saying, my diet's the best way and the only way. Let's compare to everything. Let's compare to SMEG. Let's compare to the Mediterranean diet. Let's compare diet and lifestyle versus the conventional treatments, which we know what they are in their limitations. So, so very excited to have Kent on. And he's from Georgia as well. But he was like many of us, from what I could tell. I hate to use the word workaholic, but I certainly was. And a lot of different priorities than we do have now, and a lot of adjustments we had to make. And I think the most astonishing thing for me is to talk to people like Kent, that they reached down and grabbed themselves by the bootstraps and said, all right, I'm going to make a change. I can lay back and I can take the meds and I can get worse, or I can find a way to fight it. So I'm going to bring Ken on because I'm just very, very impressed with him. And I think that he's going to just give us a new. Hi, Kent.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm good. So thanks for having me on. This is great. I've been watching these, and it's exciting to be here.
Oh yeah, I just saw your story on your webpage, and I'm like, wow, I want to talk to him, because those are the inspiration. Everybody said, "Oh, you inspire me so much." I'm like, no, you guys, everybody. Like I said offline, right? I've never met a Wahls warrior that wasn't really a go-getter, a type A personality. Not sitting on their heels. They're just let's get this done, and you're one of those people. So tell us a little bit.
And I think that's really one of the ways to thrive. So you're right. Prior to my diagnosis, I was diagnosed in '04, and I was a total workaholic. I spent the '90s as a tech executive, traveling all over, eating when I had time, maybe not eating well, eating a lot of garbage on the road, and it's like. And I started to work out, and that was a good thing, because I think it's primed me to, when I was diagnosed, to have some tools to fight back. But I was diagnosed in '04. At the time, I had just gotten married. I had two daughters under 10 from a prior marriage, and I had just started a business, so I was consulting and doing all this new things, mountain biking and hiking the Appalachian Trail. I was the active guy, and I went to the doctor, and just kind of a random thing. I had a little rash, and he took a look at it, and he goes, "Yeah, it's nothing. I'll just take this cream. You'll be fine." The thing is I was kind of on my way out the door, and I said, the funny thing about this is it feels cold. And he said, "Well, what do you mean it feels cold?" And I said, "Well, like somebody's holding a piece of ice on my face. It's the strangest sensation." And he said, that's not right. That's not supposed to happen that way. And he sends me off for an MRI and a spinal tap, and I'm kind of thinking this is over the deep end.
Yes.
Come back and they say, neurologist tells me, yeah, you got MS. And I was completely stunned. I had really no other symptoms other than this little cold sensation. Nobody in my family had ever had it.
Yeah.
And I had been kind of in denial. And I started then realizing that other little random symptoms that had been happening that I had kind of passed off. You know, I'd be at the gym working out, getting hot, sweaty, and my teeth would get numb, and I'd convince myself it was endorphin rush and all this, and no, it wasn't endorphins. But that was really kind of the beginning for me. All of a sudden, you know, the disease started to come on, and it came on quickly. I started Copaxone right away when I was diagnosed.
Right away, okay.
The shots, and okay, that's fine, I'll do this, but I got worse, and then 3 years after that, I was one of the first on Tysabri when they brought that back after it had been pulled from the market. Did that for 18 months, 2 years. Still got worse. Started to test positive for some of the negative JC virus and things, and my neurologist pulled me off, said this isn't good. And at that point, I went and just to get another opinion, I went to a clinic, world-class clinic and for multiple sclerosis, and a doctor there who knows what she's talking about said, I was 43. She said, you should travel and do anything you want to do now, because by the time you're 50, you're not going to be able to walk or travel anymore. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that was really a stunning moment for me. Yeah, and they had no answers. It was like, sorry, it's just, this is what the deal is. We don't know. Maybe we'll have a cure at some point, but nothing on the horizon. And actually, that was kind of a good catalyst for me. Not that I wanted that, but I kind of dug down and said, I'm going to have to figure this out myself. Nobody's going to do it for me. And
that's your job, right? You were telling me that you've always been a problem solver, the go-to guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started reading everything that I could find. I was in all sorts of obscure scientific journals and trying to figure this out. I don't have any medical training, but I have a sense of kind of what makes sense and what doesn't. And I found a good functional medicine doctor. My neurologist was wonderful, so I had resources to go off of. But I started having to get creative. At that point, for my own benefit, I was finding so much information. I wanted to share it with people, whether it was MS related or even I'd stumble across other things. I had been active in research for diabetes and things like that. I'm not diabetic, but I know people that are, and I wanted to share what I was finding. So I started this webpage, Get Healthier, Die Trying. But that kind of summed up my attitude. It was like, I'm going to figure this out one way or another. So I started being very stubborn, just digging in. The picture of me there, I was an avid mountain biker before I was diagnosed, but by this time, quickly, I started losing my balance and crashing into things. I'm like, I'm going to create another problem here. I'm going to break my neck, and that's going to be worse. And I spent a few years riding a stationary bike in my basement just to keep my legs strong and keep them going. And then I found the recumbent bike that you saw in the picture there. So for me, part of MS has been finding solutions, never taking the status quo for an answer, just saying, you know what, this is a puzzle. When I lost some of the ability to use my hands, and that almost put me out of my work entirely. I mean, again, I started a company and suddenly you can't type, and that was a problem. But I got voice recognition software, and I use that for almost all my writing and things like that.
Symptoms do you have? You lost use of hands. You were feeling that numbness, tingling, your teeth.
Yeah.
Getting
legs started to go. So my lesions are all spinal cord. And I've got a couple chunks you can just see missing out of my spinal cord on an MRI. And so I below the elbows and the knees, I really don't have much sensation. Or if I do have sensation, it's neuropathic pain, and there's quite a bit of that.
Involved.
Yeah, spasticity. Yeah, my legs going jumping all over. I couldn't sleep for that, and trying to solve one problem at a time. So, try magnesium; it'll help your legs, and try the speech recognition; it'll let you type even if you can't use your hands. And I have armored gloves that I use because I like to cook, and I would be cutting with a knife, and I'm like onions don't bleed. Oh no, that's me. And so, but it was a matter of finding solutions that let me do the things that I wanted to keep doing. And I'm incredibly lucky. That's in spite of the MS diagnosis, I've found out so many things that I can appreciate from it. I have a wonderful family that's really supportive. My wife and daughters are behind me on this, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction to give them a good example and to follow through. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same. You've got kids at home.
Dr. Wahls and I had this exact conversation pre-seminar, like find your blessings because they're there. I know how grim everything seems, but like if you're going to get stuck in that quagmire, then where are you going to go?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I've found I've had bad things happen to me in my life, one way or another, divorces or business crashes or other things. But I've always found, not to be trite, but there is that silver lining. Something comes out of it that's good, and so I tried to really focus when something bad happens. I'm like, I got to find something good about this. I got to make it good. Got to see something beneficial out of it. So MS has given me no end of opportunities to do that, but it's okay. And I honestly I don't go through the whole why me, why did this happen to me, because great things have happened to me too, and I didn't ask that question then. I didn't say, oh, why me? Why did my business take off? Why me? Why was I, why did I marry this wonderful woman? No, I was glad to take that. So, it's easy to get grumpy and
that's even biblical. They say, we accept the blessings, but we can't take the other stuff. I'm like, wow, that's pretty deep. Okay.
No, but I'm going to think it's what comes, and I can't. I feel like there is a good side to things, and I've really appreciated. I'm much more grateful for even small things that I can do. I don't take for granted being able to walk around the block or walk my dog or things like that. I mean, that's
before you get that far. All right, so you're feeling numb in your hands, your feet. You're getting spasticity, which you may or may not still have. You still so what was it? There was a turning point, or what began to give you a little more control, I guess.
So I was working through. I had canes and forearm crutches, and then a wheelchair, and then I moved to a different house that was more accessible. I was making all these accommodations. I drive with hand controls. I mean, it's been one thing after another to find a solution to let me keep doing what I'm doing. But it was starting to catch up with me. And by 2015, 2016, my ability to work was really starting to decline. And I started to hear about Dr. Wahls, and my research had run me down a little bit of stuff with diet before, but I had kind of always been reluctant to give that up. It's like I have had to give up so many other things. Walking and some of my exercise and other things. I didn't really want to give up food too. That was a challenge to me. But I finally just decided I gotta be all in on this. I gotta make it work. And so there's my shakes. I found for me the easiest way to get all the vegetables in was just to put them in a blender and make them up. And in fact, I've got one right here. This is most of what I eat during the daytime hours, and then at night I eat a normal dinner that it's
so tell me, I mean, this is I'm curious now. What's in your smoothie or your shake or what do you want?
So this is kale, cabbage, ginger, coconut milk, a banana, some blueberries. Not much more. My daughter took a swig of it and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not drinking this."
Well, that's not, I ask you, what do people say to you? Oh my God, that's so gross, Dad. Like, I took shots for how many years, and I didn't like those. So in college, I had tequila shots. So I didn't like those either. So I think I can eat a little.
There's a little room for tequila in here, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, but and for me, this is the easiest. This isn't for everybody. I mean, and there are probably better ways to make this, but it works. I get the vegetables in. It works with my life. It's flex. I can take it with me if I need to.
The protocol and the diet and the lifestyle. I mean, it's whatever works for you. I fry a lot of stuff in bacon grease and it gets it down. So I do a lot of smooth. I do the same as you. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
things to do. You got to do something. I can't eat like a 9-cup salad every day. Like that's not going to work for me.
No, I can't do that much. The crazy thing is so since I was a kid, I had stomach problems and I had bad acne as a teenager, and I had just all kinds of digestive issues, and I always just thought, well, that's just me. That's how I am. I'm just one of those people that's cursed with all this stuff. And what I found was as I've eliminated the gluten and the dairy and the eggs and all these other things, and started drinking these shakes and eating the compliant foods and getting in all the components that I can. Whether anything else happens with me for MS or not, I believe that it will. But my general health has improved greatly. I don't have the digestive issues anymore. My skin is good. My hair, everything is, I feel healthy. So my blood pressure's down. I mean, there's really not a dark side to this. I feel like what I'm doing now, I make my own sauerkraut, so I get all the probiotics in. I do pickles, and I get all kinds of things fermenting. I really buy into the whole gut bacteria and rebuilding that, and I think that's a piece of it. So with all the challenges that I've got, I definitely feel like the Wahls protocol has given me a foundation of health that I did not have before. What my body does with it is anybody's guess. I'm improving. For the first time in 14 years, I've stopped declining.
You dove right into the food. What about supplements?
I've done supplements. When I started on the functional medicine track back like 09 to 2010, they identified, wow, your vitamin D is terrible. This is really bad. That had been acknowledged before, but nobody did anything about it. So I started supplementing. I do magnesium. I do some other fish oil, a lot of fairly standard things, B complexes and stuff like that. But so that is kind of a baseline that I've done for a while, and that definitely helped. That did slow my decline. But it's for me, I look at it as kind of pieces in a puzzle, and I don't have all the pieces yet. I think Wahls is an important piece. It's maybe not the only piece. There's exercises in there. There may be other supplements. There's other components. But it's a big piece, and I couldn't have done it without that, I don't think, because until I added the Wahls protocol foods in, I was still declining. As I could map it out and just see going downhill.
I used to dive into supplements. I had like tackle boxes of 30 supplements I would take a day.
Yeah.
Then I realized that, man, it's all in the food, and unless the ones you spoke of, those are the ones I think are really critical. As far as like, I would eat liver.
I don't eat liver. That's one thing I haven't gotten to yet, and I need to. I do a lot of.
So you're getting stuff through your fermentation, through your food.
Yeah.
I think that's important because, even as I was studying for the lecture that I gave with Dr. Wahls, Weston A. Price in the early 1900s, he said that you take an individual supplement, but you don't have all the other cofactors. It's not necessarily going to do what you think. Vitamin D may be an exception because that's more of a hormone, but
you're right, and food has been my preferred way to get this stuff in. So yeah, there are a handful of things. I mean, I do use seaweed. I eat sardines because they're fish, but they're not the big fish with the mercury and all that. So I try to get those components in. But yeah, it's a process, and I think for me, I stepped my way into it. It's been I want to make sure that this diet is sustainable. So it is probably possible to go all in and do everything by the book for 30 days. And that's a good thing, but I want to make sure that I can keep doing it because I think 30 days isn't going to fix it for me. So I try to add and just keep upping a little bit more each month and add new things in. And for me, that works. It's, again, not for everybody, but
I'm sure you would agree this is a lifestyle change. This isn't a fad diet. This isn't like do it for 30 days, I'm done.
No.
Definitely like it. I'm sure you'd agree with me. It took me nearly 50 years to get where I am. It's probably going to take, how long is it going to take to get back? I don't know.
Yeah. I added in the summer the intermittent fasting, which I think is part of level 3. And I like that. I do 2 days a week. I do that. And I eat like 500 calorie day, and I think that's helped. And again, I've lost weight, and that's not really my goal, but it is a healthier thing for me at this age. My blood pressure and all these other indicators that you start worrying about when you're in your 50s, they're in good shape. My cardiologist says that you don't really need to come here anymore. You're a nice guy, but I don't need to see you.
That doesn't happen very often.
No. So, but it's and the thing that I'm most grateful for is, so my work was in decline when I started the Wahls diet in July of 17. Kind of coincidental at that time, I was in a major relapse. I was folded up. I couldn't sit up straight. I couldn't hold my head up. I had been through all kinds of physical therapy previously, but everything kind of crashed back down, and I spent almost that entire summer in a wheelchair. But I kept with the diet. I'm like, this is nobody had any answers, and I've never been able to take the steroids and all that. Give me the heebie-jeebies.
Flare up for you, numbness, weakness.
Numbness, weakness, a lot of pain. I was in significant pain. I literally spent most of the summer with my head between my knees because that was like the only pain-free position that I really have. I think I showed a selfie of me like standing with my arms on the counter trying to prop myself up. That was about it for that summer. That was kind of the high point of that. But I did the diet. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure this out. And I'm known for being stubborn. My wife and kids will attest to that. But I hung in there. I'm like, I don't have any other path. There's no medicine that I can do. It's easy to be stubborn when you're in a corner.
Yeah, we got nothing else. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're doing the diet, and I notice you're going into working out again. You're able to do that again, like
yeah.
A little of that. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've slowly improving. So again, after 14 years of going downhill, you can see in that bottom corner. So and for my birthday when I turned 51, I took myself in a wheelchair to a concert. That was way fun. But for my birthday on 53, which you see me on the gym there, I finally had recovered enough that I could get back to the gym and back on the bike again. And I'm not all the way where I want to be. I want to get back out on my recumbent bike, and I like doing distance rides and things like that. And I'm ambitious, and we'll get back there. But along the way, what's not in the picture is my paying work had really taken a back seat. I was not able to do that. And last year, I just kind of as a new thing for me, I started teaching a college class. I'm a sales and marketing guy, and I started teaching this. And I taught my first class from a wheelchair. The students, they didn't know what to make of me. I'm there with using my cane as a pointer and wheeling around the room. And
yeah.
I think they thought I was some crazy old man. But the fun thing was I was doing the Wahls diet that whole time, and I was getting better. September, I was in the wheelchair. October, getting a little bit out of the wheelchair. By the end of that semester, I was on my 2 feet, and I was on crutches, but my students noticed. They're like, Professor Jones, you were in a wheelchair when we started this semester. Now you're not.
That's profound.
Yeah, it was a great feeling for them, and it was a good lesson for the students. I'm like, see, this is how you do it. You don't give up. You just keep plugging at it. And then I came back. Now I'm teaching full time, which is huge. It's the first time for me that I've been able to do that, and I'm loving it. But I don't believe it would have been possible without the Wahls protocol. I don't know what will happen in the future. Maybe my results will continue. Maybe they won't. I'm optimistic, but I don't think that I could have done it otherwise, because I was in such persistent decline for so many years. For that to turn around, it's too much of a coincidence that I would be downhill, then I do the diet, and suddenly I'm trending up.
So you were diagnosed with the relapse remitting, in your main relapse remitting, they haven't.
Later, it's debatable, but the progressive relapsing probably defines my course more accurately, because I don't have a lot of I get the relapses, but it's more stair step for me. I don't get a lot of the remission. It hasn't ever gotten better. It's just.
That's why I asked the question, because explained, I went from relapse to remitting to secondary progressive, and they planned out telling me, yeah, you're not going to get, like I told you, right? You better get everything done because you're not going to get stronger. And that was pretty hard to hear.
How old were you when that happened?
Long enough. Let me think, because I got to go back to when I was working, probably 2008, 10 years ago. Roughly.
So you're 50 now?
Yeah.
That's hard to hear when you're 40. It's hard to hear.
It really is, because I was just getting into my career. Everything was happening, and of course, I was like you. I was working like crazy, and yeah, it's a bit of a slap, and
Yeah.
it's a good call. But interesting. So now you're up on canes, and you were in a wheelchair, and you're teaching full time. I'm just inspired by this alone.
Thanks. I love doing it, and I really feel lucky. I really do.
Yeah, sure. So where are you now? Like, where you're obviously you're still in the protocol.
Yeah, so I'm still doing the protocol. Some things that have changed. You might have more contrast if we had done this video a year or 18 months ago. I would have been like this the whole time. I mean, I couldn't straighten my head. I couldn't even lay down on a pillow. It was only like one way I could sleep.
I was there. I know.
And it's all good. I'm still pretty numb in my hands. That hasn't really returned yet. I do feel like my walking has improved a little bit. It's not great. I have really bad foot drop on my right foot, so I tend to have some sort of a brace. Either I've got like a carbon fiber brace or that holds the foot. Yeah, and yeah. So that's the funny thing is while my foot drops, I do have the pressure in it, so like I can pedal the bike like nobody's business. And in fact, before that I got into that last relapse over 17, I was able to do a 20-mile, 22 something bike ride on that, and I was able to get around on my crutches. I did 20 miles on those across a period of days. So I could get around. Now that when I had the relapse, I lost that, and then I had a couple unrelated surgeries over the spring of this year that kind of messed things up. But now that's all kind of cleared away. So finally, I feel like the diet is. I've got 15 months of this. I've got the surgeries behind me. So now I'm hoping that the next year, is a really good one for me. I'm optimistic, and I'm feeling really good. But I got to regain some of these walking abilities and things.
Spent a lot of time in my career in the operating room with patients, and I'll tell you what, I had one minor surgery, and it just knocks your socks off. I mean, I don't know if it's the stress, I don't know if it's the anesthesia, I don't really know exactly what it is, but it took me a long time to get back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, so they had other complications with that just leading up to it. I mean, I think it's random stuff that happens, but it was good to get that behind me. I think it was, and again, I think if it's very easy for things to snowball. So if you don't fix things, you don't fix the leaking window in your house or the door that doesn't close right, and all of a sudden you realize I'm living in a dump. This doesn't work, and so I kind of feel the same way with health. It's like not everything works, but I try, when things break, I try to fix them. I try to not let things accumulate, and because I think it will become overwhelming.
Really like your approach in that manner, is rather than look at oh my God, my foot doesn't work, my hand doesn't work, I can't do this, I can't do that. You say, you know what? Let's just target one thing. I mean, that's, for me, it hits home. I tend to snowball, and I'm like, oh my God, and then it does me no good.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a matter of finding goodness. I don't even notice it sometimes, but it's like I was going for physical therapy when I was not able to walk, and my head was all twisted off to the side and everything. And I would go to this physical therapy clinic, and they were really good. They really knew what they were doing, and they helped me. but I would go in there and they would ask me each time, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm better. And then finally, like after several months of being in there, I gave that same better answer, and they all started laughing. They're like, you are the king of better. It's always a little better. It's never a little worse. And so,
Awesome.
and I think I was happy that was the case. But I mean, I do think sometimes you have to find the positives. It's easy to get fixated on what's not working. Control what you can.
Somebody just told me I look like Sylvester Stallone. I don't believe them, but
Yeah.
I'm focusing on that then. Yeah. But all right, this is so inspiring. So there's level 1, level 2, level 3. Where are you at with the diet as far as adherence, or at like what stage?
I would say that I'm probably level 2 to level 3, somewhere in there. I'm not full blown. I've added in the intermittent fasting. You pointed out I haven't fully embraced the organ meat stuff. It's not that I won't. I got to get myself into it.
There's alternatives,
Yeah, and I try to eat a lot of sushi, and I eat the seaweed, and I eat the sardine. So it's not an all or nothing. But there are some places I tend to tell people that I use a Wahls inspired diet, because if I get it wrong, I don't want to blame what she did, because I think it's fundamentally the right thing.
Very wise. So tell me how you eat the seaweed, because I do too, and it took me a long time. But how do you do it?
I've tried to put it in the smoothies. That ended up with a kind of a fishy tasting smoothie. I wasn't really into that. I like it better if I'm cooking with it. If I'm doing certain Asian dishes, that kind of works. I love sushi, so I can eat it with that quite easily. And I do that fairly regularly. I get sushi probably once a week or so.
Yeah, sushi, we could break it down and we get omega-3s, you can DHAs. I mean, there's so many brain food, right?
Yeah.
And then with the seaweed, you're getting so many minerals and so many vitamins we can't even name, right? There's so many that it may be gross or maybe this, but you know what? It's our medicine, right? So I put it in bone broth, or I'll do what you said, and just kind of sneak it in wherever you can. I do the same thing with liver too. It took me a long time to do the liver. I have memories of a child with liver. Yeah,
a lot of people were traumatized with the liver, I think.
It's like eating a shoe. Not that my mother wasn't a great cook; she was, but it was like eating a shoe leather, whatever.
I've really embraced the fermented foods, and because I'm kind of I like to tinker with stuff, and so it was another little project that was fun for me. So getting the jars, and I found these little lids that make it really easy. But that's actually. I did the probiotics for a long time, and I still do. I mean, I think they're helpful. But to me, the fermented foods took it up a level. I felt like they had much better impact.
You can't get the trillions of bacteria that you're getting in. I don't know what you're fermenting. You fermented sauerkraut, kombucha.
Sauerkraut. We've had pickles. I've done sour tomatoes. I think what else I've done. But it's just a little bit of everything. We have a garden. And try to eat as much as we can out of that. And that's also been helpful with the shakes. I was growing mint leaves and parsley and things like that. I could throw that into the shakes, and I tried to put in as many different. I've always kind of believed that the strong smelling herbs had the better chemicals and medicinal value of some kind. So a lot of times with the shake, I'm dumping fennel in there. I'm dumping cilantro and parsley, you name it. It goes in. It's all green, and again, it works for me. I don't know that I'm going to set up a restaurant and sell this stuff to anybody soon, but I eat it, and my kids have modified it. They're like, my daughter tested, and she's like, "No, I'm not eating this, Dad." But she took that idea and she modified it a little bit to where she was okay with it. So I was happy.
To break it down a little bit with the fermented foods, I mean, a huge source of K2. K2 tells where the calcium goes. K2 is responsible for stem cell activation. K1 is responsible for blood clotting. And there's a little of that, but this is the K2. So and then you're getting all the bacteria that you can't really get in the pill.
Yeah.
So I, like you, like tinkering. So the first time I did sauerkraut, I was like, wow, this is great. This costs like nothing, and I got like It's too much. And I made kombucha and then beat kvass. I'm like, all right, this is pretty neat. And people will come over to the house and they'll look in there and like, what is that? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, it's a little bit of a freak show in my garage where I've got all these jars and things like that. But it works.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
How is your wife taking all this in stride and your children?
She's been great, and then I think that's one of the things I'm grateful for. I know that it can be really hard on relationships, and I was terrified when I first got diagnosed. Again, I was only married a year, and I had young kids, and you're like, how am I going to be a good parent? And it was difficult. There were a lot of challenges that I was afraid of. My wife is really my rock, and is always supportive, always sees the good in what I'm doing. Has always been very patient too. It's not easy. I'm sure you probably can experience. It changes everybody's life. Everybody has MS at some level.
Yeah, we're absolutely blessed. My wife is an angel to me, and I can't say enough good things. So
yeah.
Without her, I don't know. So I hear you 100% with that. And the kids have taken it in stride, and the kids actually seem to be more empathetic to things, and they're like, oh, Dad, can I help you? And then I noticed that on the outside too, they seem to be. So
yeah.
If I was a kid and I saw somebody in a wheelchair, I'm probably going to cross the street and go the other side. But they got a different perspective now. They know, and I didn't.
I think I would say that my kids have become a lot more empathetic, like yours. They see things differently, and they appreciate things differently. I'm also grateful they've taken my experience as a positive, but that's also inspired them. So they've been very encouraging of me to do Wahls diet. In fact, even before I was starting it, like, Dad, we know it's going to be hard, but this is a good thing. But they've started doing it for themselves. My little sister, actually got diagnosed with MS some time ago, and she's had good success with diet. She hasn't fully gone the Wahls protocol, but she's actually even probably further than that on some foods. I think it's the same philosophy, but it's really helped her. And so for that, I think that's another benefit is if I can figure this out and I can be a good example for my kids or other people and prevent some of the challenges. I wish that I had known about this diet and had gotten into this 14 years ago. I might be in a different spot, but maybe my commitment wouldn't have been as high. It's easy.
I think too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was mentally ready to make that a commitment.
Yeah.
It's far easy to cheat, have that piece of pizza or have that donut. Now I don't touch it. I don't even crave it.
No, and it's a challenge, and it was easy at first to say, well, I don't want to give up anything else. I've made all these other compromises that have been forced on me. Why should I have to give up food too? Now that I'm starting to see some payoff from it, it's made it a lot easier. They're like, oh, it's like that old people that are dieting and they have the sign on the fridge, nothing tastes as good as being thin feels, and I'm kind of like nothing tastes as good as walking feels. So that's going to put me on the track.
So how old are your children now? 11, 12?
23 and 21 now. So they are one.
When you're first. Okay, now I understand. Yes.
Yeah. So now I've got one. She's working and she's just moved to Manhattan, so she's thrilled there and she's loving it. And I got another that's in college.
My practice in Manhattan. Whereabouts in Manhattan?
She is down like in the Village area, West Village area. She's been there like 2 weeks, but she's loving it. She's FaceTiming me all the time. Look, Dad, look at this. I lived in Manhattan for a little while when I was a kid, like in 4th grade. I haven't been there in a long time, but your practice was right downtown. What?
It was at Park and 76. I was very fortunate because I did my residency. There were these cosmetic dentists that were looking for somebody, and they found me. And it was also fortunate for me because I realized I didn't want to do that. It was like drill and fill, and I got tired of that pretty quick. But so it was all good. Things happen for a reason. So when you travel or when you go out to friends or family or birthday parties, what do you do?
So locally traveling is not so bad. My wife drives most of the time. I do have hand controls, and we both actually can use the hand controls when we want to. They're just sticks. They're not really elaborate. But my friends know, and they're accommodating if I need to eat something different or whatever. They're very supportive of that. I'm really lucky that way. I think they've seen all the work that I've had to go through the years. They knew me. Many of them knew me when I wasn't diagnosed, and so they've seen the decline. But I kind of still have the same attitude that I had before. That hasn't changed so much. It's sort of the same. I'll figure this out. I will get through this. So traveling internationally, I've done that too. That's a little harder. I got to say, the U.S., thanks to ADA, I think is the best place in the world to have disability challenges. You go over to Europe or something, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of steps.
I used to do mission work in Haiti, and then we were talking to the head of the medical director, and I'm like, can I bring my wheelchair? He's like, yeah, there's no place for a wheelchair in Haiti. So forget that idea. And I'm like, oh, boy, okay. So I brought forearm canes, and he's right, there was nothing. Yeah, the ADA, yeah. I'm just going to comment because Jackie Roger is on there, and she's talking about the kids, and they're pretty amazing. And Dr. Wahls and her both have given me like so much advice to my children because we have 5, and I'm always looking at the downside. But if you know her children, they're pretty amazing. They're pretty amazing, and maybe it's hard to say, but maybe because of MS, I don't know. It exposes you to a whole different. I know it's exposed my children. I probably wouldn't have chose that.
Right. Yeah.
But in that, like she said, that kids are better because amen. I totally agree. And they're Jackie and Dr. Wahls are amazing people, and I had the fortunate opportunity to spend a couple days with them for 2 years in a row. So good stuff. What else can I pick your brain about? All right, so you're fermenting the food. You're eating. Your wife is she Wahls compliant, or is she just kind of?
She's supportive. I mean, she eats pretty healthy too. I mean, we both work out a lot, and she's always been a good eater. In fact, she's probably a better eater than I was for a long time. So we can, the nights that I'm not eating, for example, like she's like, okay, you're not eating today because it's a fasting day, and she just rolls with it.
Let's break that down a little bit because the intermittent fasting really changed me, and I kind of went deep into ketosis because in my deepest moments I couldn't speak like this. I would stutter, I would lose my words, I could think of the words in my head, but I couldn't get them out of my mouth. It was very frustrating. It was very tough.
It had to be.
So when I went intermittent fasting, I don't know if I intended to be in ketosis or not, but that seemed to help me quite a bit. So tell me about your experiences with intermittent fasting.
I've really been pleased with it. When I first started, I thought, well, this might be really hard. Obviously, the whole not eating thing seems like a big deal. Yes. And I really, it made sense to me, but it didn't mean that I wanted to do it.
Right.
But I signed up for it. I mean, I made the decision totally on my own that this is. I started seeing what Dr. Wahls was doing. Again, my research. I just take in all kinds of data, and I try to figure out what makes sense and what's kind of an outlier. So I've been doing it since the beginning of summer. I think in June I started 2 days a week. I just do 500 calories a day. So generally, maybe in the morning I will have a small shake, and then I probably won't eat anything for the rest of the day until dinner. That's kind of my preferred route. I've done some days where I don't eat anything until dinner, and that's a little harder. It's actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be. The more I've done it, the easier. It's just like, okay, my energy didn't plummet. In fact, I think it's just as good. Other than the occasional stomach rumbling, it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, and I'm like you. I kind of delve into it, and being in ketosis is actually more efficient fuel for your brain. So I know I have a lot of doctor friends that are just in ketosis, not because they have MS, just because they want to work harder and faster and longer. And so they love it. And I have a couple weightlifting friends that do the same. So I'm not one to say that we need so much glucose. I'm not saying we need to be in ketosis 24/7. And I think Dr. Wahls agrees with that. But I think what you're doing and the intermittent fasting is what helped me. I used to do 3-day fasts, and I probably should go back to it, but those were a little hard for me. I tend to get a little shaky, and I don't know. My wife was like looking at us, was like, "No, this is not good for you."
I think the very first fast I did was a 3-day rotation, and then I got to the 5-2 kind of a plan. And kind of what led me to that was the idea that you would reboot your immune system a little bit. That it's kind of like all the ballast out. No.
I heard yes.
And so I don't know if what your experience has been. Sounds like it's been positive, like mine has been.
The intermittent has been favorable for me. I don't know if it's a lower body fat now. I don't know. The 3 days was tough, but the intermittent really worked for me. And I tend to do that probably 5 out of 7 days, maybe more, maybe less some days.
Yeah.
So regimented. I'm learning to that it's necessary for me to get the nutrients in. It's very easy for me to say, I'm not going to have the bread, I'm not going to have the milk, I'm not going to have the ice cream. But then I won't do what you're doing, having those smoothies and all that. So I think your body's starving, right? It's not getting the nutrients in. I mean, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it is important. And actually, I found that you would think like, oh, I did this fast, and then the day that I'm off, I'm going to binge and overload, and I don't do that. I mean, I understand where that logically would seem to happen. But like I fast, I do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and ironically, those are the days that I teach, and so I'm fasting the whole time. I'm getting on the train, and I'm going down, and I'm hobbling around campus, and I'm doing my lectures, and so it's not like I've decided to take the easy day and do it, but it's fine. I have no issues with it. But like this morning, I woke up and I didn't eat anything until about noon. You would have thought like I would have been at 8 a.m. wanting to eat, and I kind of got around to it, but I wasn't that hungry.
That surprised me as well. The fact that my body all of a sudden really wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
What is this? This is really bizarre to me. Like I should be eating 5 meals a day or 5 small meals, whatever I learned.
Yeah.
Cool that I had that kind of unlearn now, but to me, getting the nutrients in that 9 cups that Dr. Wahls talks, or 6 cups if you're in ketosis. I mean, it finally makes sense after all these years. Like you got to get it in, and can't always be in a pill.
No,
Got to be in food.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I had a lot of problems absorbing vitamins, so the vitamin D has been a real challenge, and I still take like 15,000 units a day. I mean, it's a crazy amount, and yet I get tested, and they like, okay, you got up to 60.
And so where's your vitamin D levels when you're taking 1,500? I'm just curious.
I'm about like 60, 65 right now.
So everybody's different, and that's what Ken's saying is very, very important if you're going to be doing those protocols with some high levels of vitamin D. But if you get tested, this is where the magic is, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it can be toxic.
Yeah.
So that's really good that you're doing that. How often do you get tested?
About 4 times a year. So, and it's been pretty stable. And I'm hopeful that I mean, when I first got tested, my vitamin D level was something like 20 or 18. It was really low, and they just acknowledged it, like, oh yeah, your vitamin D level's low, but there was not any thing to do. It's like, it's you're not a tall person, and your vitamin D is not good. That's what it is. But it's so yeah. So I think focusing on getting those levels up has been helpful. I'm still not where I want to be. I've understood that to get your vitamin D levels up to like 80, 90, things like that. I think there's some evidence that that's where you start to get some additional benefits. But I want to be real careful because I don't want to overdo it. I try not to do any harm.
Right, because then you can affect your bones. I mean, there's a lot of other negative things that you just kind of overlook. And this kind of brings to the fact that this is purely for education. We're not really giving medical advice here. I'm not telling you to take 100 milligrams of vitamin D. This is all got to be through your doctor, through your functional medicine doctor, or your auxiliary physicians. So what I did over the summer, because you're in Atlanta too, right? So I spent a lot of time in the sun, and I figure, well, I don't need as much vitamin D. But when I got tested, I realized I'm not getting the vitamin D levels even with the sun. I think there's something to the fact the sun has to hit the skin and it provides a benefit. But for me, I realized like, all right, I gotta do both.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've tried different things. So I had such trouble with absorption. I've tried topical. There's creams that you can put on, and that helped a little bit. I try to get it from the sun. I feel better when I'm in the sun subjectively. So whether that's just that I like the sunlight or whether I'm getting the vitamin D, I don't know.
But you're tolerant though. I mean, like the Jim, you were saying that affect, does that still affect you?
Say that again.
Heat intolerance when you get hot.
Yeah. Yeah, the heat is not good for me. I mean, I like the heat. I always kind of have, but the heat doesn't like me. I mean, if I get really hot, my legs. Even if it's funny, like even if I get a fever, my fever hits 100 degrees, and I'm like my arms and legs don't work. I can't. I mean, and then the fever comes back down. I'm my own thermometer because I kind of know that it's like, oh, I got to be getting about to 100.
You and I are very alike. Tell me about your fat consumption, because that's the big thing everybody freaks out about. Like, oh, what do you mean you're eating just protein and fat? I'm like, no, that's not Atkins.
Yeah,
nutrient dense diet. But tell me about your experiences.
I eat the coconut milk is in the shake, and I get like one can in there, and that's probably half a can a day. So I'm not like loaded up on that. I do eat the bacon fat. Grass-fed beef and things like that. I mean, I try to get healthy fats. I try to get wild salmon or the sardines, get better quality fat than since I maybe would get from farmed salmon. So I've found that I think it's helpful. It makes sense to me. It is part of your brain chemistry, is from what I understand, and so giving some of those building blocks. I do watch cholesterol and things like that, and it's funny though. Before I started this diet, I went on. My doctor, functional medicine doctor, said you need to go get checked because by cardiologist because your blood pressure is creeping up, and I don't like it. And I want to make sure that they do an echocardiogram and all these other things. And I did all the stress tests and all that kind of stuff. I think she didn't want me to drop dead, and which was good. And so they put me on blood pressure medications, but and so I've done the Wahls stuff. I was also, so Georgia has the CBD oil program that also helped my blood pressure came down with that. That helped also a little bit with my spasticity.
Tell us a little bit about that, because that's always the hot topic. So you had CBD in Georgia. How is that administered? How do you do it?
You get a little oil. The laws here are really kind of wacky, and this is a tough one. So I was one of the first on the program when I heard this was coming out, and I had done some research, and your body's endocannabinoid system, and that's kind of a regulator for a lot of different things. And so again, I kind of look at like pieces of the puzzle, and so I did, and I still do the CBD oil. I think it's a good thing. It definitely helped with the spasticity. It helped with the blood pressure started to come down. My doctor started taking me off the blood pressure medication because they're like, no, you were high blood pressure before. Now you would be too low if we kept you on these things. It's actually been interesting to me. I've dropped, and with medical advice, I've dropped, I think, 6 prescription medications since I started the CBD.
Medical advice, good.
Yeah. No, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, so I try to be real careful. And I tell people, I said, just because I read a lot of medical research doesn't make me a doctor any more than reading a cookbook makes me a chef.
You're pretty knowledgeable, though. So I'm going to ask you one question, but first, how is just for those listening, how is the CBD oil administered? Is it smoked? Is it under the tongue? Is it?
It's under the tongue. You just do a little. It comes in a little bottle, and you could drink the whole bottle, and you're not going to get high. I mean, it's not intoxicating at all. That was one of the regulations for Georgia. Other states, if you're in another location, you may find some people do benefit from having a little bit of the THC. That can be very effective for neuropathic pain. So for some people that's an option that can be helpful. But yeah, I take it under the tongue, and I usually do it at night, and that's it. But I've slept a lot better. Spasticity has gotten a lot better. Again, I think
switches and all that stuff.
what's that?
The night switches and those sort of things gotten better.
Yeah, I used to have problems, my leg jumping all around. I mean, to the point that I would sleep with kind of a fiberglass boot that I fashioned under my leg to kind of keep it straight because I couldn't sleep otherwise. So my leg would still be jumping around, but I wasn't kicking and things like that. It would hold it rigid. I don't have to do any of that now. So I will say the CBD oil is valuable as I think it was, and I've been an advocate for patient access. I think it is really valuable. That didn't solve my whole problem. I think that got me part of the way. That was an advance on. It was better than where I was at before, but it wasn't the whole way.
I like what you said about pieces of the puzzle. We keep putting pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll ever know all the whole puzzle, but we're putting pieces together, don't we?
Yeah. I think now my goal is I would love to get better. I would love to come back here in a year and say, look, I can jog, I can tap dance, I can do that, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. I do feel like for the first time that I've stopped the decline, and so my hope is that I continue to improve, that my body gets a chance to heal, but I'm not stupid. I've got spinal cord injury, and I know that that's a really difficult thing for people to resolve. So
but I'll share research that I've been looking into because I have the same issues as you. Multiple sclerosis. Sclerosis is another name for scar, right? And so a lot of times when you have that scar tissue, the nerve can't go through there anymore. It's scarred down. But the research shows it can go around. It can reroute. I mean, we call it neuroplasticity. So, I don't know whether mine will or not. I know in some respects it has, because I've gained some functions that were totally gone. But I will say it's not a linear upward path. It's definitely up, down, and hopefully continuing the trend of go up.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but that's kind of my hope. And I try to use my legs and as much as I can. I actually, there's a wonderful spinal cord injury clinic up in Alpharetta that I went to for a while. And while I was not in this, I mean, people with like a C2 or C3 kind of a break, and those were some of my lesions at that level. I got some others that are in that like T6 range. But they did the functional electric stimulation, which I know Dr. Wahls has used too. I think where you're wearing the pads to shock your muscles into action. And I think that was helpful. I mean, I need to do a little bit more of that. That's kind of might be another piece of the puzzle for me. I try to do a lot of workouts in the gym and strengthen them, but like the foot drop and things, I think maybe if I was doing a little bit more with the functional electric stimulation, I might strengthen those muscles in a way that I can't easily now.
She's a physical therapist, and so we have this conversation, unfortunately, every day. But she says those E-stems are only beneficial if you co-contract. So while the foot's coming up, you work with it, and then hopefully you develop these pathways. Pathways, and to read she worked with a lot of stroke patients, so she has some knowledge about that. Now, Kenny, you're very knowledgeable on the protocol for only being 14 months. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 15 now. Yeah, but yeah.
So you're definitely a smart guy. But what advice do you have for folks that they're just starting out, that was just diagnosed, and they look at the Wahls protocol book, and they're like, what? Like, what advice would you give?
I think it's starting early. It's a big commitment, but you can start small. I mean, I think even if you just start making progress, like eliminating, going gluten-free, dairy-free, things like that, that's relatively easy to live with, and you probably will get some significant benefits starting out, because unfortunately, I think our food supply, our mainstream food supply, is toxic in a lot of ways, and that we don't fully appreciate, whether it's the antibiotics or the glyphosate in the food and things like that, damaging your gut lining, all the antibiotics. I think I didn't feel like I lived in an unhealthy way necessarily in my 20s and 30s, but looking back, I think I did a lot of damage. So I think starting if you can't make the full commitment to go all in, if you're not ready for that or you can't sustain that, pick some place that you can start with and stick to it. And I think, as Dr. Wahls says, if you fall off the wagon and you eat a pizza, okay, don't give up. Just go back on. The next day it's better.
Yep.
So I think it's. I wish that I would have done this before. I think you and I think the same on this. I'm not anti-drug, but I've taken all the medications, and I think that they have a lot of side effects that are really toxic. Some deadly, some just nuisance side effects. And again, my not a doctor, but just casual observer and interested observer. I feel like the medicines help for a while, and then they, for some reason, don't. I see a lot of patients that have been on 3, 4, 5 mainstream medicines, one after the other, and I'm like, if they were a long-term solution, you would have locked in on one by now. I feel like the body must be reacting to this and responding and compensating for this new substance that's been dumped in. So I'm grateful that they're there. I really am. I think and I think that maybe there will be a tool in there at some point that helps.
Dr. Ken Charlin kind of set me straight on this, because I became very anti-drug because I was probably a bit jaded. I was like, well, I spent all this money and nothing worked. But his take on this is, it's work to change the trajectory of the disease, right? Just to be able to say that is profound. And if you're not willing to work, or maybe it isn't working for you, maybe there's a place for a drug. So I'm not gonna trash drugs. I feel better without them right now, but I'm like you, putting a lot of work, a lot of exercise, a lot of food. So that becomes my disease modifying medication, right?
I think one of the things that kind of spooked me on some of the medicines was I still take Copaxone. So full disclosure, it's not like I've gone anti-drug or anything like that. But I've chosen that carefully because I think it's a relatively benign medication. There's some others that I've seen that, I saw, there were some patient deaths associated, and I was a product manager. I know what it's like. You start looking at I make software, and how many people are going to have this experience, and how bad is it going to be, and you start making these cost-benefit trade-offs. So I don't fault the drug manufacturers for looking at profit, but I saw one of them where they had been a bit slow to release patient deaths information that could have helped, and they said, well, we didn't want to alarm the investors, and I understand that. I've worked with investors. I respect that, but I'm like, okay, but I need you to be focused on me. I'm sorry. This is my concern. So again, I wouldn't tell somebody to not take drugs, especially if they can't do the diet work. I think that it's a question of benefits and costs. And so if you can do the diet, if you can stick with it, you can make that investment, then do it. If you can't, or it's just not right for you at this moment, then I think the drugs can provide some important benefits for people. And maybe buy you some time. Perhaps if I hadn't done the drugs when I was diagnosed in 2004, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be even able to do this interview. So I can't begrudge them that I'm here. I'm happy with where I'm at, on the whole. So.
Morning quarterback,
Yeah.
You're doing. Very, very interesting, very inspirational. I've kept you from a long time. I just want to give you the last word. What's your advice to folks that are out there that are listening to you? You're very astute and very very active. What advice do you have for people that need that little boost, that need that little push? I always recommend, you go to a Wahls protocol coach, go to a functional medicine doctor. there's a lot of different ways we can learn.
Yeah.
You go on the websites, we can go on Wahls sites. There's a lot. So
they are not rigid in what works and what doesn't work. They will explore different options with you and try to find something that is right. But I think you have to be your own advocate, and sometimes that means changing doctors. Sometimes it means being persistent with questions if you don't feel right. maybe it's not right. You trust your own judgment in that, and be willing to bet on yourself and invest in yourself to do whatever you need to get better. It's not more important to anybody but you. So if you take ownership of it, I think that's a start. And I'm grateful for the work the interviews that you're doing and the work with Dr. Wahls. I think we can't do this by ourselves. If I didn't have people like you or Dr. Wahls or the rest of the community that are out there, I'd be just in the wilderness. I wouldn't have figured it out. I mean, I would have maybe stumbled into things, but I wouldn't have been able to research this. And so it's
the only reason I do this is because when I was diagnosed, I had nothing. So when I found Dr. Wahls, I'm like, wow, at least somebody that's got something, right? And so I felt powerless.
Yeah.
I don't want to take you back, but I mean, how do you feel about mindset plays a role in this whole recovery process?
I think it's pretty huge. I think for me, I think I've always tried to focus on the good, and I honestly do feel lucky. And I'm not just saying that to be trite. There's so many things that have happened good for me in my life, that with family and finding cures and things like that helped, little pieces. I take a lot of satisfaction from overcoming things. It may not seem like much, but when I walk my dog, even for a short distance, I really value that because I know that can go away.
Much, believe me, you're back to work full time. I mean, you accomplished what people just dream of doing, and it wasn't even available years ago, right? There was nobody that you were this far into it. Who went back to work?
I think one thing that helps me, and I would advocate, is be flexible and be willing to adapt. I think it is MS is a disease of adaptation because, like I said, I was a mountain biker, jumping logs and streams and doing all that kind of crazy stuff, and then that ended for me very quickly as a result of balance issues and things like that. And my first response, I took my mountain bike, and I got a stationary trainer thing in the basement, and I just pedaled for 3 years. Like, I have to keep my legs strong. I need to find a solution. I eventually came across a recumbent bike that I can't tip over. I tried, but I can't actually tip. But I think sometimes you may not be able to do it exactly the way that you did it before, but that doesn't mean it won't be bad. So I would advise somebody coming in is if you've had challenges if you are getting progressive disability, if you can't do certain things, find what you can do and build on that. So, I was not a college professor before I was diagnosed. I was a business executive traveling and things like that. There is some level of adaptation to this disease in me taking this new role. That's very satisfying to me. I love doing it, but it isn't what I was doing 10 years ago. And I think if I had been locked in, like, no, I have to be able to do what I've always done, or I have to be able to bike and do exactly the way that I've done, I think I would have been angry and limited my options. I think giving myself the permission to try some different things and figuring out what the really best parts of that I enjoy, whether, is it biking that I'm jumping over logs, or that I'm biking that I'm out in the sun with my wife and riding around and doing things like that. And I think that's been the value to me. Then I don't feel like things have been taken away, because the important pieces of it, in many cases, I've been able to retain and regrow in something else.
So how did you get to this point? I mean, because initially your first reaction, I guess, the psychosocial is to be angry and to be despondent, depressed, and but you've seemed to take on a whole different persona.
I think, some of it is me, but some of this is a choice. And that's a hard thing. And if somebody makes a different choice, I'm not critical of it. But I think that, like, I've tried to be conscious. Like, I have a lot that I could be angry about. I lost this, I did that. There's no doubt. But that doesn't change anything. I feel like I'm bouncing off of the walls, and I'll be right back where I started, and I'll just be angry. And if getting angry will help me, yeah. If it motivates me and I can use it, then I'm all good. But I try to.
Doesn't help.
No, if it's an inspiration, like me walking around Amsterdam, when I was 50, taking a selfie. There was a little bit of spite in that, like, see, you told me I couldn't do it, and I did it anyway. I'll follow the instructions. But I think, and that's not easy. But I do think if you're determined, that it is a learned thing. This isn't something that I've always been good at, and I'm not always good at now. I have my days like anybody else, and I get frustrated when I can't do some simple thing, open a jar or put button my shirt. There's a lot of things that I can't do. But ripping up my shirt into shreds isn't going to make it any better. So it's like, feels good for a minute maybe, but it doesn't.
Shirt then. I love picking your brain. Let me ask you one more question. What's your day like? Like when you get up, I mean, like how long do you sleep? What do you do when you get up? Like, just give us a typical day.
I'm a bit of a night owl, so I tend to be up for better or worse. My clock has always been like sleep, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Get up maybe 9:30 if I can. I mean, it depends a little bit on my schedule, but I tend to do well with that kind of a rotation. And the days that I'm teaching, I go down. I teach downtown, and so I'll take Marta down there. I can drive. They do have disabled parking, but it's that much more of a hassle, I think, getting through Atlanta traffic. It doesn't.
Marta, guys, is this like the subway or like the
train? Yeah. It's our little subway here, not everybody wants to do that, or I happen to be close to where I can get to it, so that helps. But then I'll go down there and I'll teach, and typically I'm down there from about noon until 7 at night, which is when my last class ends, and then I come back and I'll eat after that. And the days that I'm not, I'm working here, whether it's grading papers or writing up lectures and things like that. So and until recently, I was pretty active in consulting, and so for my own business, and so sometimes I would work with client projects and things like that. I've set that aside for right now as I'm doing the teaching. It's really been my focus, But I have to be careful. So you mentioned being a workaholic, and I'm bad about taking on too many things, and I can do that. Of course I can, and I can fix that, and sometimes I'll run myself into the ground. So I have learned to try to stay within my energy level and not overdo it, because when I really wear myself out, then I make my own disease worse.
Another good point. So well, I'm not going to keep you any longer, but
those have been great, though. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Well, I tell you how much I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure that the people listening and everybody that's in situations like ours, or just beginning the journey, as I call it. I mean, it is very inspirational. And then also I want to plug Dr. Wahls' research. If you go on my page or any of this, you could see the donation link, and it's a crowdfunding. So all the money is tax deductible. All the money goes directly to, nothing goes to the university. Everything goes directly to the research. Actually, Dr. Wahls is not even taking a salary, which is, I think, profoundly generous. And so I encourage everybody, if we want to continue this sort of, anyway, just listen to your story is inspiration enough. If everybody, whatever they could put, $10, $20, $1,000, I don't know, whatever your means is possible. I'm just really excited that we can actually change the trajectory of the research, which is unheard of.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, you inspire me. Her work inspires me. The fact that not only, I mean, a lot of people could have just figured this out for themselves and said, okay, at least I dodged that bullet. But she turned around and said, I can help other people, and I mean, that's so impressive to me. And if I can, help somebody else in turn and pay it forward, I'd love to do that. But I'm really, she sets the bar, and I think the MS community as a general rule, I think there's a lot of optimism and good people in it, and that I take a lot of energy from that. I'm inspired by that. So,
just to plug Dr. Wahls and Jackie again, I've had the privilege of meeting them twice now, and I gotta tell you, she's the real deal. I was just, I was taken aback because I've met a lot of doctors and worked with a lot of doctors that maybe not the nicest people in the world. She's not one of those.
Yeah.
I waited till everybody got done fawned over the first time I met, and I went to shake her hand. She's like, shake your hand. She's like, give me a hug. So I was like, wow, she totally disarmed me right in one fall swoop. So I love her to death. I love Jackie. All her staff are amazing. You know, I don't even want to mention all their names, but I mean, she's just got such a team around her that inspires me every day. And then to hear stories like yourselves, it's just, like I said, I read your story online. I'm like, oh God, if I could get him to come on and tell a story, it really can help some people.
I was excited when I saw your comment on it. I'm like, hey, I know him. This is great. This is awesome. And no, it's and this is great. I mean that you're getting the word out, and that's huge. If somebody's diagnosed, it's a scary thing. If you don't know what's ahead and nobody can tell you what's going on, I think to see like there is a life after this. You can do this. This isn't the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's not the worst thing that's going to happen to you. It's just, we can make it a good thing if we're focused on it. So
I love your perspective, Kent. I mean, it's definitely contagious. It needs to be. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
This has been fun. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk. So
I'm just tickled to talk to you. And we're neighbors and we didn't even know it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Have a great night, great weekend. Enjoy the family. Thank you again.
Thank you as well. Your kids, they're very cute. I see them come in and out. That's awesome to have them around. And I think that's another good benefit of this. It's the family, I think, is the family is better. If I was traveling the world or something, I might have missed a lot of that.
Good point, because that's what I was doing. I was working 16, 18 hours a day. I didn't know the kids. I didn't know my wife. I don't know what was going on. And it probably wasn't very good. So, and my little 4-year-old that came in here, she's just, keeps me going. So,
yeah, the best. That's the whole point. So,
yeah, amen. All right, you have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks.